Hello everybody, my name is EQ and welcome to The Opposing Player. This channel is my first attempt at any sort of TCG related content and we'll be focusing on mainly Yu-Gi-Oh! But some Lorcana will be sprinkled here and there. My goal for the channel is to bring you as much TCG related content as possible, from deck profiles to pack openings to live matches to discussions. You name it, I will try to do it for you. This first video is my own personal deck profile. I just got first place and went undefeated at a fairly large case tournament here over the weekend, piloting Infernoid, Fiendsmith, Snake Eyes. Let's go over the card by card. I'll explain some of my choices and maybe show you a combo or two. For simplicity's sake, I've gone ahead and divided the deck into the different engines so that way it's easier to follow. And as I go through them, I will go ahead and talk to you guys through my card choices. First up, 3 Infernoid Decatron, mandatory 3-of, best Infernoid in the deck. It sends any other Infernoid out of your deck into the graveyard and it copies their effect, their name, and they add their level. Honestly, it opens up so many plays, whether it's board breaking by sending one of the little Infernoids or providing some sort of protection from hand traps by sending either Deviati or Nunku to the graveyard. Usually, if I start off with Decatron in hand and I have a Bonfire, a Wanted, or a Diabellstar in hand, I will most likely normal summon Infernoid Decatron first, for the simple reason that it is such a great hand trap bait. Most players will immediately Ash, Imperm, Baylor, Decatron whenever they see it come down, leaving you almost with free reign to continue your combo with any of those other cards, granted they don't have any additional hand traps. Next up, we have 1 Permise, 1 Harmadic, and 1 Petrulia. That's it for the small guys. I opted to go with Permise instead of Antra, the level 2, for the simple reason that it is searchable by Snake Eyes Ash and you can add it back to your hands via Snake Eyes Oak, and also because it is great against back row reliant decks. Going against Runic Stun or Labyrinth, I usually drop this guy or send them off of Decatron, forcing them to activate any back row or risk losing it because they cannot activate it in response to this. This is the same reason why I went with Petrulia, because again, back row reliant decks are very prevalent out there, so this is just an out to that. Harmadic is also spot removal as well, but the main reason why you run these two is because Harmadic, Petrulia, and a Decatron is the second best special summons that you can do off of Void Feast in case both of your Sajets are out of the deck. For the medium-sized guys, we have 1 Piatti, 2 Sajet, 1 Saitsemis, and 1 Atandel. The main goal of this deck was to hand loop your opponent by fusing Infernoid Tierra with Fiendsmith sequence. So this is the reason why you need to run all these different names. Piatti wasn't relevant at all, aside from being an additional name to send off of Infernoid Evil. The 2 Sajet, you definitely need the 2 for the combo in order to hand loop, but also because since you are going to be milling out a whole bunch of Infernoids using Infernoid Evil, you want to always keep one in the deck in order for you to be able to resolve Void Feast. Saitsemis is definitely one of the best Infernoids. You attack, you banish something without targeting, so it's non-targeting removal, and Atandel great for OTKs, but most of the time they were used just as names for the fusion. From there we have 2 Deviati and 2 Anunku. We have the Heavy Storm, Monster Negator, and the Dark Hole and Spell and Trap Negate. Because of the existence of Infernoid Evil, you have to run 2 of each at this point. A lot of people think that that's tricky, but honestly, you need to be able to send them out via Infernoid Evil and then still have a copy of each, hopefully, in the deck in order for you to resolve Void Feast afterwards. For the Void spells and traps, we have 1 Void Banishment, 1 Void Breach, 1 Void Imagination, and 1 Void Feast. Now, a lot of people argue that you should be maximizing the amount of Void Vanishments that you have in the deck, so that way you always have access to Void Feast, as well as maximizing the amount of Void Imaginations, because there are so many more Infernoids in the main deck now than there ever has been. But I honestly think that it's not really necessary. Void Vanishment is always searched by Infernoid Evil. If you're not searching Void Vanishment off of Infernoid Evil, then you're kind of doing something wrong. You should only be using Void Vanishment as a last resort where they've stopped your entire combo, and then all you have to resort, the last thing you have to resort to is activating Void Vanishment, because it locks you into just Infernoids, and then you want to search obviously your Void Feast and to be able to summon in your opponent's turn. But again, that's last ditch efforts if everything's been stopped. Void Breach has been amazing to be able to special summon a Deviati or Anunku that you might have drawn and immediately nuking the board if you're going second, whether it's Dark Hole with Anunku or a Heavy Storm with Eviati. It also gives you an extender for you to put 2 bodies on the board and go into any of your Fiendsmith combos. When it comes to Void Imagination, a lot of people think that you should be running multiple of this, because a lot of the newer Infernoid decks that you see out there are running a much higher count of Infernoids than I am. And they also run Dark Calling in order to fuse into Infernoid Evil going first. Because I'm running such a bare minimum list here, it's only 15 Infernoids, 3 of them being Decatron. You don't really see multiples in 60 cards unless you get extremely unlucky. And the chances of you seeing them with Void Imagination is pretty low. Void Imagination itself as a starter kind of stinks unless you have the 2 Infernoid bricks in hand. So I would just suggest that you side them out like I have. You will see that later on in the list. And obviously just a single Void Feast that you can search off of Void Banishment to round off the Infernoid side of the deck. Next up is the Snake Eyes engine. We have the 3 Diabell Star, 3 Snake Eyes Ash, the 2 Poplar, the 1 Snake Eyes Oak, then we have 1 Flamberge, and then for spells we have the 3 Wanted, 3 Bonfire, 1 Original Sinful Spoils, Snake Eye, and then 1 of the Divine Temples. Pretty standard Snake Eyes engine. Nothing really stands out. We don't run the Snake Eyes Diabell Star because we don't go into Selene at all in this combo. Extra deck space is already tight as it is. We also don't need an additional brick with how many Infernoids we're already running. Infernoids themselves are already bricks, and we don't need to add an additional one on top of the Flamberge, because Flamberge is technically a brick. We don't need to add another one in the form of Snake Eyes Diabell Star. For the Fiendsmith engine, very small. 3 Engraver, 2 Tract, and a Lurie. This is all you need. You don't need a 3rd Tract, honestly. Fiendsmith Engraver is just amazing. It provides you with all of the extra deck utility in the form of Sequence, Requiem, Necroquip, and all that stuff. And of course, you can go into Beatrice, which will bridge you into either Infernoid or into Snake Eyes, whichever one you need to get into if you haven't drawn it already. For the last 2 engine cards, we are running 1 for 1 and 1 Instant Fusion. If you're not summoning out a free Infernoid Evil off of an Instant Fusion, I don't know what you're doing. 1 for 1 is a mandatory card in every Snake Eyes or even Infernoid list, honestly. For non-engine, we have 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Imperms. We have 3 Forbidden Droplets, 3 Triple Tactics Talents. We got 1 Magnamut, 1 Druid's Worm, and the single Called by the Grave. I wanted to have a nice mix of both hand traps and board breakers. The Bestials have been so clutch in not only getting rid of opponents' Fiendsmith stuff, but also being an extra level 6 body for you to go into Beatrice with. Obviously, the Forbidden Droplets were amazing board breakers. Ash Blossom and Imperm, I drew them pretty much hand in hand almost every other game. So it came in super clutch. A lot of people think that because you are running 60 cards that you shouldn't really be running hand traps and you should be going more of the board breaker route. I found that having a nice little mix of both was just absolutely great. Triple Tactics Talents just to protect your combos or draw into additional cards in case you get stopped somewhere. And obviously the Saki one of Called by the Great. That is it for the main deck. Here it goes the extra deck. We have the Fiendsmith stuff with Moon of the Closed Heaven, the Fiendsmith Requiem, the Fiendsmith Sequence, and the Lacrima. And I do run the 1 Necroquip Princess in case you need to get Fiendsmith Engraver back into the grave. Definitely a great card to have. There is an argument that this could be anything else like Dark or a Hida, since I don't run any of those in the extra deck. But again, just the extra deck is so tight that I was focusing on making sure that my full combo kind of goes through. Next up is the Beatrice. It bridges you into the Snake Eye stuff or the Infernoid stuff. Whatever you may need that you didn't draw, this will get you to it. And then you revive it off of the Princess, the Bestower of Flames, and you kind of go from there. But yep, abuse it while you can before they hit it in the ban list. For the generic links, we have 1 IP, 1 SP, 1 Proxy F Magician, 1 Promethean Princess, Flood, and Access Code Talker. I barely went into Access Code Talker. I think I might have gone into it once. But other than that, I just keep it because I don't have the Zelantis and Raging Phoenix OTK stuff. The last 3 cards in the extra deck were Infernoid Evil, 1 Garura, and 1 Infernoid Tierra. I don't have any space in the extra deck for Mud Dragon, so I don't run Super Poly, but the reason why I run 1 single Garura is because once you fully resolve the entire effect of Infernoid Tierra, you will be hand looping your opponent, and then in a new chain, you will be activating Garura as Chain Link 1 and Infernoid Evil as Chain Link 2, so that way you can search for the Void Banishment that you will add to your hand, and then you will draw an additional card, which will be your discard, so that way you can search for your Void Feast after you hand looped your opponent, so that you can activate it during your opponent's turn. For the side deck, I honestly think that you should tailor that to whatever event it is that you are going, but my choices were 3 Skill Drain, a Anti-Spell Fragrance, and a Black Gold Labs for going first. For going second, we had 3 Evenly Matched, 2 Dark Ruler No More, the second and third Void Imagination, triple Tactics Thrust, along with 2 targets for it in Change of Heart and Harpy's Feather Duster. These worked wonders for me. Honestly, MVP was Evenly Matched. Drew it against the Labyrinth player. Unfortunately, it was my buddy. Banished his entire field, and he couldn't really contend with anything that I had afterwards. So that is it for the deck profile. Honestly, I've been piloting Infernoid since 2015, since they first came out, and I personally think that this is probably the best the deck has ever felt since Maximum Crisis time, when we had 60 card Infernoid Zodiac with grass looks greener being legal. I'm still tweaking things and testing things out, trying to make sure that I get the most optimum build for this. I've been testing out Nadir Servant, but with Droll and Lockbird being prevalent in the meta, I've honestly kind of moved away from that. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. I would really appreciate it if you do. A huge shout out to my buddy Sele, who would give me a lot of pointers and his thoughts on what my side deck should be, tested with me a lot. To my team OSG, Old School Gaming, I appreciate you guys for always being there and helping me test my deck and dealing with all my shenanigans, because I've tested so many BS versions of this deck, whether it be FTK, etc., and they've put up with all that. And to my local store and sponsor Weebbox for just being one of the top tier stores in Puerto Rico, if not the best one, and for always putting up top tier events. So again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. I will be making a separate combo video, so that way you guys can learn on how to perform the hand loop off of 1 card. And yeah, this is EQ signing out. I hope you guys have a great day.